So I want to comment on one of these comments I got on my No Dudes at Whole Foods video from the other day, that I was kind of joking about because I happened to actually go out into the wild, and that was the one place I went, and I wasn't expecting to meet anyone at Whole Foods. But there have been a lot of comments about how I'm not going to find like a straight male anytime at Whole Foods. And first of all, that's not true. There are straight males that shop at Whole Foods, and there's also nothing wrong with the non-straight males that shop at Whole Foods. There's nothing wrong with anyone who shops at Whole Foods. I realize it's a category and it's got a perception. There are some things they have that other stores do not have that meet my dietary needs. And actually, sometimes they are less expensive than Stop and Shop, depending on what you're looking for. So I do my shopping at both Whole Foods and Stop and Shop. Anyway, you know me and my ADHD tangents. But I thought this one was interesting, where this one's telling me I'm going to find a Democrat at Whole Foods. And I don't want to get into politics because obviously that gets people really riled up. But my response to him was like, I hope so. And so I thought, let's talk about it a little bit. Like, let's not get into beliefs and like voting and all that stuff. Like, let's not get into that. Let's talk about it just from a dating perspective and perception. In that, so like I have said, I'm not going to date a conservative, and that has less to do with like who I think you voted for or what I perceive your beliefs to be. It has more to do, like I'll consider a moderate who really is a moderate, but like a Democrat would be great. A liberal would be great. But they're not all great. Like there's challenges with all of us in every category, but it's a perception thing. So for me, I perceive a conservative, not just from like a political standpoint or whatever your beliefs may be, but my perception of that is that you might be less open-minded. And again, these are just perceptions and generalities that may not be true of everyone. And so that's what I'd love to have a conversation about, generate some conversation. But just from a dating app perspective, I'll tell you kind of what I'm thinking and what some other women are thinking is that conservative to me sounds like maybe not that open-minded. So maybe the conversations aren't going to be that great. There might be some kind of closed off, like the masculinity might be mistaken, because masculinity is more than just like being a tough guy that drives around in a pickup truck hauling lumber, and doesn't show emotions or any of those things. Can beat somebody up in a bar, that's great, but like masculinity, it encapsulates a lot of different things for us. But I look at that, I think, okay, that's probably somebody that maybe also doesn't maybe have as much of an adventurous travel side like I do. Probably wouldn't want to travel to some of the more far out developing places that I like to go. Probably not going to be great at conversation with the people in my life, my friends, my family, again, and probably a little emotionally cut off and stunted, which are things I'm not looking for. Moderate could be any combination, but when I think about liberal, what I do think about is, and this also can be wrong, not all liberals are like this, but I do get the perception of, okay, this person is probably a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more adventurous in what they're willing to do and try and travel. They're probably a little bit more in touch with their emotions. Maybe they've even been to therapy. That would be great. They're willing to self-reflect. They take accountability for things. They understand that what they say is important. And so maybe they don't love bomb you because they realize there are consequences to the things that they say. So they're a little more measured, but they're not afraid to get into tough conversations. They understand intimacy quite a bit better, and they're probably willing to also talk about it in ways to help enhance and make it work better and better and better. So they're probably open to those things, meaning like they'll try until everybody's happy and they'll keep going. They don't maybe have one set way of doing things and can't be given feedback, read between the lines. So for me, and there's deep masculinity in that. Like I've definitely seen these guys, they're strong, they're protective, they take the lead on a lot of things, but they're considerate and they can have a conversation. They can manage conflict. They are not afraid to discuss their emotions. They are not afraid to try new things. They mix well in cocktail parties and family dinners and friend events, and they're fun to talk to, and the conversations and the banter are really, really good. And the same can be said of some moderates that I've met as well. I perceive them as like, okay, there's probably some reasonable stuff in here, and I'm not so worried about the belief system. And I'm figuring like, okay, if that person, again, has all of those traits, that open-mindedness, that adventurous, the conversation, the emotional stability and vulnerability, accountability, follow through, consistency, all of those things, that's what I am looking for. That's what a lot of women are looking for. And at the end of the day, like if you get these equations right, like a relationship should be fun. It's going to have challenges and conflicts and problems. But the thing is, you want to find that person that you can actually work through those things with, so that those aren't the only things that you have, so that you do get to the other side and just generally can enjoy life, especially at this age. Like we're going into our golden years. How do we want to do, not to get morose, but like, how do we want to end this, right? And like, we want to have a partner that we can have a good time with, that's a good friend, that again, we can have good open conversations with. And then when the shit hits the fan, we can get through it together, working together to solve a common problem. So I think when we're looking at dating apps and we're looking at sort of the political thing, and we're sort of like bracing ourselves against the conservative, that is less about the voting and all of that stuff, and it's more about like, what does that represent in terms of behavior. And for me, again, my perception is that person's behavior is not going to be a match with mine, or any of the people in my life for that matter. So I'm going to look to a moderate, I'm going to look to a liberal. And so if I find a Democrat in Whole Foods, I don't actually think that's a bad thing. I think that could be a great thing. That, again, not to say there aren't problematic folks in there. There can be, like, well, I'm looking for masculinity, right? Because you're looking for somebody that wants to get into their feminine. I can do that, but I have to have the right guy to do that. If I feel like I have to fight you and protect myself from you, and that is how I feel about a conservative, then I am coming in with like all male big dick energy, and like that's not attractive to either of us. So just some thoughts. Would love to hear other people's thoughts. Again, let's not talk about the voting and the beliefs. I'm talking about the behaviors that those things can create perceptions of, and what are some ways to work around that? What are some ways to maybe use your profile to help people better understand you, in a way that makes you non-threatening, that makes you sound like, you have kind of all these capabilities, because I believe there's probably conservative men that have all of these good things too. So how do we position that? How do we do that better on the dating apps, so that, a woman's not looking at that and being like, swipe left? Because I tell you, when I see conservative, I swipe left regardless of anything else. And so I think a lot of women are doing that. And I'm sure a lot of guys are doing that too with us liberal gals. So how do we meet in the middle, right? Like, what are the real expectations we have of each other, and how can we meet them? And let's try harder for that.